In December, we took 4 of our 6 grandchildren to the Christmas story at Holy Trinity Church. The dramatic encounter of the Magi with Herod prompted the youngest, 4-year-old Nora, to say, "Grandma, why is he so mad?" And later, when Herod ordered that all infant male children under the age of 2 be killed, Nora said, "Grandma, why is he so mean?" Herod was a descendant of people who were conquered and forcibly converted to Judaism. He inherited his position as king of the Jews from his father, who got the job by collaborating with Rome, Judea's conquering enemy. Needless to say, Herod was deeply unpopular, especially perhaps with the Jewish religious elite who were his advisors. Early in his reign, Herod initiated a massive renovation of the Jerusalem temple that brought employment and hope to the people. He even melted down some of his own personal gold to buy grain for those who were starving. For this, he became known as Herod the Great. There is perhaps a little evidence that he might have helped engineer the title. Regrettably, despite being called Herod the Great and melting down gold to feed the starving, his character was tragically flawed. He was insanely suspicious of anyone who dared to demean or rival his power. Because of this, he murdered Mariamne, one of his 10 wives, as well as 3 of their sons. Augustus, the Roman emperor at the time, said it was safer to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. At the age of 70, near death, and knowing how despised he was, Herod ordered the arrest of all the most distinguished citizens in Jerusalem, and further that at the very moment of his death, all of those distinguished citizens would be immediately put to death. In this way, Herod, such a nice guy, assured that there would be widespread mourning when he died. Scholarship has affirmed that Matthew's Magi were not kings, but Zoroastrian scholars and priests. Zoroastrianism is one of the world's oldest religions, and it was the official religion of Persia prior to Islam. Today, it is still widely practiced in Iran and in India. The primary prophet Zoroaster was believed to have been miraculously conceived in the womb of a 15-year-old Persian virgin, young woman. Like Jesus, Zoroaster began his ministry at age 30 after successfully defeating all of Satan's temptations. Zoroaster also prophesied that other virgins would conceive additional divinely appointed prophets. Zoroastrian priests believed that they could foretell these miraculous births by reading the stars. Like Jewish scholars and priests at the time, Zoroastrian priests and scholars anticipated the birth of a Messiah, a Savior for all nations. By telling us that foreigners follow a star and then bow down and worship the baby Jesus in a cowshed, Matthew is emphasizing for us that not only is this the long-expected Messiah of the Jews, But this is also the Savior expected by Gentiles, the neighboring Zoroastrians, who also happened to be allies of Judah against Rome. Politics has always been complicated. The gifts that the Magi bring, while clearly eccentric and definitely not child-friendly, demonstrate that the Magi clearly identify the legitimacy of this king. Kings were recognized by gold. Frankincense represented wisdom. Myrrh was a sign of a long rule and of healing. When the Queen of Sheba visited King Solomon, she brought him such gifts. Matthew is possibly saying that Jesus is definitely an equal, if not greater, than Solomon and all his wealth. When the Magi, who were quite accustomed in their own country to consulting with advisors and rulers at courts, when they stopped to consult and ask for directions at Herod's court, Herod hears news that inflames all of his insecurities. He hears that not only do Jewish scriptures, but even representatives of a foreign power predict that a king, a shepherd king, a credentialed, legitimate king of the Jews, descended from the legendary King David, will be born now in Bethlehem. For Herod, this poses a threat to national security. Forbid talk of it. Build a wall. Better yet, kill them all. Yes, kill all the male children in Bethlehem under 2. Kill them all. National security. The massacre of the innocents from earliest times. Artists have chosen this horrific event as a subject. All through the ages, canvas after canvas after canvas shows the unimaginable chaos and terror of state-sanctioned murder of the innocent. The raw fear, trying to hide, trying to flee. The unthinkable desperation of parents trying to keep their vulnerable, precious little ones safe from soldiers. Perhaps some of you have seen an image currently circulating on the internet of Mary and Joseph, their ears and their bodies pressed against a wall, and on the other side, a small child beseechingly reaching toward them. Today's gospel story floods us with images of the innocent at risk. Today it's migrants like Mary and Joseph, desperately fleeing violence and chaos in their home countries to find safe home and future for their beloved. In the recent past, did you know in 1911 the Canadian government lowered the age from 7 years to 4 years of age that Indigenous children could legally and forcibly be removed from their families and put in residential schools? And do you know that that decision was taken despite clear evidence at the time that residential schools were not working And they were not working primarily because they were so devastatingly underfunded and so grossly creating malnutrition, illness, death, all lack of human rights. A 4-year-old asks, "Why is he so mad? Why are they so mean?" And we too raise our lament. How in our time with such rich resources, both material and intellectual, resources that could be shared to bring healing, health, full bellies, laughing, happy, productive, creative children everywhere, why are Rohingya children still starving? Why are Palestinian children still murdered? Why are untold numbers of innocents on every continent still at risk and on the run? Perhaps the Magi came to be called the wise ones because they saw through Herod's lies. And they not only saw through Herod's lies, they resisted his evil power. In their wisdom, they completed their spiritual journey by kneeling before the long-awaited child. Perhaps they were also wise because they trusted their own experience of what is wrong, because they trusted their own visions and dreams as divine communications, because they trusted their own faith tradition, a faith tradition that gave them the courage to resist Herod's power and take another way home. And the parents of the child, they too were wise ones. They too trusted their own experiences of what is threatening and wrong. They too trusted that their dreams were divine communications. They too trusted their faith tradition. And they too found the courage, having already traveled almost 100 miles from Galilee to Bethlehem at the demand of the Roman Empire, to now escape Rome's puppet by traveling almost 600 miles into Egypt, where alone they would face new languages and new customs. But their child, the child born in Bethlehem, God's own promise, would be safe. They too, with great courage, resisted Herod's evil power. This is a difficult story. This is not the tender, lovely story of Christmas, of a baby in the manger. This is the Epiphany story. This is the light that shows forth God's way in our world. It's a good text to begin a new year. It challenges each one of us to be open to God, to trust our traditions, to trust our experiences, to follow our spiritual paths. It challenges us to be open to God who dwells with the lowly, travels with those on the run, weeps at violence and destruction, and who will always travel with us as we find other ways home. Many of us are already on paths that find other ways home. paths that help to lift up all who are cast down, paths that resist overconsumption of resources that should be shared, paths that name injustice in order to seek reconciliation, paths that bring life, not death, to our earth and all of her beloved creatures. Today, on this day of Epiphany, this day that lights our path, I invite you now to take a moment of silent reflection. In the first minute, you might, if you choose, remember and be grateful for whatever rays of light, however small, are in your life that sustain you and give you courage. In the second minute, you might ponder, if you choose, what do you need? What do you need in your life now to continue to live a path that takes another way home? I'm going to signal the beginning and the end of our silence by the sound of my singing bowl. I'll signal it once when we begin. I'll signal it at the end of 1 minute, and I will signal it at the end. I invite you into silence. What you're thankful for, what you need.